Hello and welcome. This video covers an introduction to Stat C1000, Introduction to Statistics for fall of 2025. The purpose of the video is to go over some of the basic parts of Canvas that you're going to need in order to be successful in the course. And then it goes over the syllabus, which talks about some of the policies and procedures that govern how our class will work. So we will start by taking a look at Canvas briefly. When you log into Canvas, it should look something like this. You won't see the pink bar across the bottom. That's what I get when I'm logged into student views. You will not see the pink bar, but everything else should be essentially the same. Down the left side, really quickly, if you've never used Canvas before, click on courses to switch between multiple courses if you have more than one. If you want to log out of Canvas, do that through account. If you need to send messages to me or potential classmates, that would go through your inbox. Anything else, and this is true throughout all of Canvas, you can click on anything you like and it won't break anything. So feel free to explore by clicking on anything inside that red area. Okay, down the next column, you'll see home, which is the screen that you're seeing here. And then smart search, you can click on that if you like. Virtually, again, anything, click on it to see what it does. For the most part, you will be in either home or modules, which takes you to the same place the way that I have it set up. Other than that, like I said, click on anything you want. You may want to look at the tutoring in task, click on that. That may be useful, especially. The most part that you will, or the most time you'll spend will be in this middle column. Uh, in this first part or the first block, you'll see it says syllabus and getting started. Introduction start here. That's the video you're watching right now. The syllabus, we'll be looking at that in a few minutes. There's another video on My Stat Lab, which is the software that we'll use to get our work done in this course. The course ID, which identifies this course in My Stat Lab, that's right here, Kleinfelter 12516, and then a PDF with some instructions on getting that account set up. One thing that you will note in navigating Canvas is to the left of each of these kind of block headers is a little triangle. That right now, little triangle is pointing downward. That indicates that the block is opened and can be closed. If you want to click on the little triangle, you'll see that all the links that were below syllabus and getting started have now disappeared. So if you click on it, there it is, click it again, and it'll go away. That suggests that under helpful information and lectures and notes, chapters 1 through 3, that there's going to be more stuff, and sure enough, there is. Under helpful information, there's some things that I have put there, some PDF files that will help you hopefully with things such as test anxiety or test preparation, things of that sort, how to deal with negative thoughts during test taking, and so on. Each of the items that has an icon to the left that looks like a paperclip indicates that it's a link to a document. If it has something that looks like kind of like a link to a chain, that would be an external link. Those are links to videos. So there's at the bottom how to make and how to use a math practice test. Some helpful information there. I hope you do find that helpful. If you find something especially helpful or maybe something that made it worse, also let me know. Below that, lectures and notes, chapters 1 through 3. So far, we have notes and lectures for all of chapter 1. There's only 3 sections in this chapter. First part is a set of notes for sections 1.1 and 1.2, and you'll see following that there's a video lecture that accompanies those notes. And then notes for section 1.3 and then a lecture for section 1.3. So the plan for how you might want to work through this, it would be to read through the notes and then watch the video lectures, either in parallel to looking at the notes or first the notes, then the lecture. Or maybe you want to watch the lecture first. It's totally up to you, but you have some flexibility as far as that goes. Obviously, there's going to be more stuff posted, but for now, we've got chapter 1 available. Okay, back in the syllabus and getting started block, like I said, the introduction start here. That's the video that we're watching right now. And then we're about to take a look at the syllabus. So out of looking at Canvas, the main things that you're going to need are going to be the lectures and notes, which of course, as the class proceeds, we'll have more stuff populated here very soon. And then other than that, logging in and out, switching between courses. You won't need to use Canvas for much more than looking at the lectures and notes. We'll potentially have some discussions over the course of the semester, and those will appear, of course, under discussions. All right, so at this point, we're going to switch over to taking a look at the syllabus. So as I said, this is Stat C1000 Introduction to Statistics, fall 2025, and it's online. I'm the instructor, Dan Kleinfelter. My email address is as shown. I check my email every day during the week, up to about maybe 5 or 6 p.m. And then on the weekends, I may or may not check it. So it just depends on life and stuff. So feel free to email me at any time. If you do email me, it'll be helpful if you'd put either in the body of the email or the subject line that you're in the stats class, because I have 3 different classes. That'll help me answer your question. If you just write to me and say, hi, when's our first test? Then I'll have to write back to you and say, okay, well, which class are you in? And then we have this back and forth email thing. So it's faster if you just put your what class you're in, as well as your name, in the subject line or the body of the email. I have an office on the Palm Desert campus. It is an MSTC 246E. I have office hours as shown, Mondays and Wednesdays, 11 to 12:30, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11 to 12. Those are in-person office hours. If you do want to meet online, send me an email, if possible the day before, so that I can set up the hardware and we can meet online via Zoom during those times. So just send me an email the day before and we'll see if we can work something out. Right, next thing is course content, what the course is about. If you read through that paragraph, there's going to be some things in there that you don't know what they are, unless you've already taken this class before. So I want to give kind of a big idea version of what this class is about. Statistics, the way we look at it, is kind of divided into 2 halves. There's a descriptive statistics and an inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics involves doing things that describe a set of data or a body of information. Things such as graphical displays, like making scatter plots or bar charts that show visually a set of data. That's relatively little time that we will spend. Other than that, other descriptive ways or descriptive features of statistics would be numerical measures, such as calculating an average, which you've done before as a student, a range, measures of how variable a data set is like the variance or standard deviation or range. In short, numerical measures of describing a set of data. That would be the descriptive statistics part. The inferential statistics part involves the word inference, which has to do with making a inference, decision, or guess about a set of data. And that's the bigger part of our course. And basically how it works is this. If we want to know something about an entire collection of data, which we'll call a population, then let's say that we would like to know the average income of a typical COD student. Let's make it height. That's going to be easier. The average height of a typical COD student. We could do this by sending out email surveys or in person. We could poll people who are coming out of the cafeteria, or we could position ourselves in a particular spot on campus and survey people. There are, of course, problems associated with that. If you were in person, you would miss all the people who are only online. If you were by the cafeteria, you would miss all the people who never go to the cafeteria and other issues like that. Even if you had a way of accessing all of the students, like maybe you sent out this survey and made people answer it in order to register for classes, then still you would have logistical issues of reading and processing all of these surveys, let's say. So what you would do is instead, let's try to survey 100 people and see what their average height is. Okay, and from there, average height of the people in the group of 100, we could decide, well, this is probably somewhat representative of the COD students as a whole. Of course, there's some difference potentially due to chance, just due to the fact that we've chosen 100 people instead of all the students. And so there's some issues with that, which we'll get into in this course. But the kind of big idea in the inferential statistics part is that it's either too hard, too expensive, or destructive to examine members of a population, so we just do some of them. I should clarify the destructive part. For testing, sometimes we have to destroy things in order to test them. Let's say that you wanted to know how well cars do in a crash test. You can't crash every single car that you plan to sell, so we select some of them and crash those, right? If you work in a restaurant and you need to do quality control on the burgers, then you can't take a bite out of each one. So you might cut into several every now and then to see how well done they are, or whatever. So the big point is, instead of examining every member of a population, we examine some of them, and it could be representative of the population as a whole, or maybe not, potentially due to chance. And the issues that go along with that and how the procedures work for doing these things is what the kind of second 2/3 of the class is about. That's the inferential statistics part. Okay. So that's a long-winded way of saying the course content. Sorry about that. Prerequisites for the course, basically some knowledge of intermediate algebra, and that's Math 45 or 49 or qualifying placement. There's advisory of English 1A and an advisory co-requisite of Math 310. So that's kind of a lot of stuff. Let me address each of those things. For the intermediate algebra, you won't need to do things like graph parabolas or do any kind of factoring, or completing the square or the quadratic formula, things of that sort. The main parts of algebra that you're going to need would be to be able to work with fractions some in especially our probability sections. And then also a lot of times we'll have formulas that we'll need to plug numbers into formulas and then calculate. So working with order of operations, more or less, is the big part of it. Some just kind of overall skill with math, like being able to read numbers in tables and calculate, to an extent, looking at graphs sometimes of scatter plots, and maybe the graphs of lines at the very end of the course. If you have a question over whether you meet the math prerequisites or your kind of readiness for this course, then let me know. We can talk about it. For English 1A, we're not going to be reading short stories or writing essays or anything in this course. This is basically just how making it so that we're able to read through story problems or some of the written procedures in our textbook that describe how we do things. In this class, there's more likely to have written procedures for, how do you calculate a standard deviation? How do you find a confidence interval? Is a set of steps, and you have to go through these steps, and they're written down, so you have to be able to read through these things. That's what the English prerequisite is about. The advisory co-requisite is basically Math 310 is kind of a helper course that will help people if they're maybe a little bit deficient in some of the skills that they need for this course. So you can look into that, check with a counselor, or look through the class schedule and see if you can find a section of Math 310 if that interests you. Okay, so we will move on. You can read through the part about AB 705 and 1705. Format for the course, our class is asynchronous, meaning that there are no live lectures. We don't have to be online at a certain time, and you won't be watching me live deliver a lecture. And that's kind of an advantage, and there's also a little disadvantage there. The disadvantage is that potentially you don't get your questions answered immediately. An advantage, though, is that you can do this class more or less whenever you want, up to deadline. So you can do our work after you get home from work at 11 p.m. You can do it in the middle of the day at 4 o'clock. You can work on it on Saturday, whatever it suits you. And that's the appeal of an asynchronous course. The lectures are pre-recorded and posted on Canvas. I showed you those for chapter 1 already. As College of the Desert is in California, any kind of due times, due dates for assignments and tests are in Pacific time. So if you're going to be traveling or if you are elsewhere, then you want to adjust for those times. Okay. The time commitment for the course is approximately 8 hours per week on the course, aside from the time spent viewing lectures. So the time spent viewing lectures would take the place of the time you would spend in class if this were an in-person class. And so aside from that, it takes about 8 hours a week per person to do the homework, read and study, and get the assignments done. Okay, moving on. So moving on, The required text for the course is Elementary Statistics by Triola, the 14th edition, and it says My Math Lab Access. For our purposes, My Math Lab and My Stat Lab are essentially the same thing. You may see it referred to as just My Lab, and all three of those things are the same for our purpose. The My Math Lab course ID is on Canvas. I showed you that. I'll show you that again in a little while. Do you need to have the paper copy of the textbook? Totally up to you, and I'll never know whether you do or don't. The other video, the introduction to my stat lab, will go into how do you get access and all of that stuff. So again, I'll refer you to that video when we're done here with the syllabus. Okay, grading for the course, we'll have 3 exams worth 15% of your grade each. That makes 45% of your grade altogether. Homework over the course of the semester is 20% of your grade. We'll have quizzes worth 12%, participation and discussion questions worth 3, and then a final at the very end worth 20% of your grade. Exams will be scheduled in advance and will probably occur on Thursdays. You'll have at least 90 minutes to complete the exam within that time frame. Exams are due at 11:59 p.m., so basically midnight. You'll need to start earlier to have the full time. For example, if you're given 90 minutes for the exam, you need to start by 10:30. So you get, let's say for this 90 minutes for the test, you have to start and finish it all at the same time. You could do it like at 10 o'clock in the morning and work till 11:30. You could work on it at 1 p.m. and work till 2:30. But you can't start at 1, work for half an hour, stop, go to work, come back home and do the rest of it later. Once you start the test, you have to finish it. But when you start the test is up to you. They'll open at 8 o'clock in the morning and close at midnight. So the soonest you could begin would be 8 a.m. And if you want the full time, the latest you could start would be at 10:30 p.m. Also, the 11:59 p.m. is like a hard deadline. So although it says 90 minutes, if you log in at 11:30, you're not going to get to work till at 1 a.m. If you log in at 11:30, you're only going to get a half an hour for the test. Okay, so if you want the full time, make sure to log in by 10:30. If you have a question about the timing for the test, let me know. Our final exam will be on Thursday, December 18th. For the final, you'll have 2 hours to get it done. You'll want to mark that on your calendar now so that you don't miss it. There are no makeups for missed work. None of the exams, including the final, can be taken early or late. If you miss one of those first 3 exams, I'll replace that exam score with whatever you earn on the final. But you do need to contact me before the day of the missed exam. Only 1 exam score can be replaced in this way. If you have the misfortune of missing 2 tests, that second one is going to count as a 0. There's no makeups for the final. You don't want to miss that because, of course, at 20%, that's going to torpedo your grade. So don't miss the final. The final's on Thursday, December 18th. Okay. Your grade is determined by your combined overall performance on the assigned work. We have the pretty standard 90% for an A, 80% for a B, and so on scale here. There's COD doesn't do plus minus grading. It's just A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. So that's it. No rounding is guaranteed. So a 79% might still be a C. There's no extra credit. No credit is given for things like needing to transfer or graduate, being an athlete or an international student or a scholarship or having taken the class before or sick family members or pets or anything like that. Okay, I think it's most fair and equitable for everyone to be graded on the same basis. And so your grade is just based on your work in the class. Okay. Homework is done on my math lab or my stat lab. Make sure to check in regularly so that you don't miss things. Typically, assignments will be available for 4 or more days. Tests, of course, will be available for at least a week. But I would check into my stat lab at least 3 times a week. Okay, you'll need a scientific calculator. It doesn't matter which one you use. If you want to know if a particular calculator is suitable for the class, just let me know. We'll do some work by hand on a calculator. There's a software built into my stat lab that we can use to do a lot of the calculations. Also, some people like to use a spreadsheet software like Excel or Google Sheets to get this done. And if you want to, you can do those things as well. Student learning outcomes, I'll leave you to read that. That is kind of a semi-everyday language explanation of what we learn in this class. Your attendance is not used in calculating your grade. However, people who attend class, that is, watch lectures and read the notes, um, and participate in discussions, tend to do better than people who don't and get a higher grade. You may be dropped from the class if you don't do work in my math lab for 4 or more consecutive days. Okay, so sometimes with an online class, people start out with good intentions and then things happen. Um, they get stuck with work or their personal life, or in-person classes tend to take priority and they just kind of let it go. If you don't drop the class, but you just stop doing work in it, you won't get a good grade in it. If I notice that you haven't done work and it's been like some days, 4 or more consecutive days, then I may end up dropping you from the class to avoid you getting that bad grade. If there's some reason why you can't do work, you're going somewhere there's no internet, like the jungle or something, or whatever, that you're not going to be able to do work for the class, then email me and let me know that you want to still be in the class. Okay. Classroom conduct, aside from the student code of conduct in the college catalog, there's really only one rule. Be honest, civil, and courteous to one another in discussion boards, or if we're in office hours together, um, basically be an adult. So there's that. Students with disabilities, read through the paragraph and let me know if that applies to you, and also check in with DSPS as soon as possible. Cheating is not tolerated. Incidents of cheating may result in a failing grade on the work and or a report to the Dean of Math and Science. Extra credit, there's, as I said before, no extra credit in the course. You want to work on trying to get the grade that you want from the beginning. It's really hard to catch up in math classes, especially because a lot of things build on each other. So try not to get behind from the very beginning. Okay. So some advice that can help make it easier to do well in the class. My advice would be to work on statistics every day. As I said, the class is asynchronous so that you are able to work on it kind of whenever you want. That gives freedom, and with freedom comes responsibility. It's up to you to decide when to get the work done. It works best if you do math and in general and statistics in particular in small doses spread out over time. You'll do better if you're going to spend let's say 7 hours, because that's easy to divide. Let's say you're going to spend 7 hours on this class. If you'll learn more if you spend an hour a day for 7 days than if you were to ignore it all week and then do 7 hours on Saturday. Okay, that's kind of an extreme example, but it illustrates the point. If you do it all in one huge chunk, for one thing, that's demoralizing because nobody wants to look forward to 7 hours of homework. And also, you just learn more if the learning that you do is spread out over time. Okay. I plan for you to read the book and watch the lectures. Some people just try to get onto my stat lab and just go into the homework and just try it, and it usually doesn't end very well. So read through the book and watch the lectures. Okay, to be successful in math in general and statistics in particular does take practice. Only you know how much you need. Different people will need different amounts of practice. If you are not getting the grade you want, probably the first thing to do would be to examine the amount of time you're spending on the class. As I said, the guideline is roughly 8 hours a week. That depends on the person and your level of preparation. If you deviate too far from that, either one direction or the other, then let me know and we can try to figure out what is going on with that. All right, that takes us to the end of the syllabus and our look at Canvas. Let me switch back to Canvas for a second. This has been the introduction start here video. We also looked through the syllabus. The next thing that you'll want to do is watch the introduction to my stat lab video and see about getting that my stat lab account created. So remember in there, the course ID that you want to use is Klinefelter 12516. In the video, it was for another semester, so the code is different. So keep that in mind. Let me know if you have any questions as we get started. And then I hope you enjoy the course. I enjoy teaching it. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.